Hello everyone, I'm Marco, co-founder and CEO of Senis.AI here in London, and we help associations become innovative leaders and build strong communities. We believe firmly that the best way to do this is by using AI to analyze their data. I'm joined here today by Alexander DeBarr, who is a seasoned vet in the association world. And for 2 decades, he's worked with over a staggering 2,000 associations achieve their goals. So I'm really excited for us to discuss some of the big challenges that associations are facing today. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. Alex, how's it going?
Good morning, Marco. How are you?
Yeah, smashing. Really well, thank you. So perhaps you can just kick us off with a bit of background from yourself.
Sure. I've been in the media, events, and online communications industry since, for a long time. Let me just say that. And for the last 17 years, or 17 of the last 18 years, I was the CEO of Naylor Association Solutions, which is a multi-solution provider for associations that really focuses on engagement services and on the generation of non-dues revenue. So that includes print and digital media, software, event management. We're the largest provider of career and job board services for associations, and we also have an association management company. And I'm currently an advisor for Naylor and also serve on the board of the ASAE Business Services Group, which is sort of the for-profit division of ASAE.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Sounds like a bit of a silly question, but I wanted to ask a really, really basic question, which is, what is an association? And the reason, by the way, I'm asking is because I find it very rare to find anybody that's outside of the association space know exactly what an association is. I don't know if you found that as well, but yeah, maybe you can give us your definition.
Sure. Well, I think it's pretty simple, and associations come in trade form. There are trade associations, and there are professional associations. But really what they are is communities. And so they are entities that sort of coordinate a community that's focused on a vertical market or a profession. They come in national, state, local, provincial, county. There's in the U.S. and Canada, there's about 32,000 trade and professional associations. And so they really develop a community and then find ways to serve that community through its membership, and they generate revenue through dues and through non-dues activities that are usually focused on monetizing the engagement that they do.
Got you. So would you say that pretty much top of the priority list for an association is to establish strong engagement across their community?
Sure, I think it's vital for an association. It's very circular if you think about it. An association to do its job well, which is to represent the industry they're serving, to educate the industry they're serving. To do that well, they need a robust membership, and to maintain a robust membership that's representative of the population in that industry, they've got to provide value. And the best way for them to prove that value is by doing good things when it comes to engagement. And that can be sending content, providing experiences through events, providing education, and so forth.
Got it. And from that perspective then, what would you say are the biggest challenges that associations have in terms of being able to create that community and drive that engagement?
Well, I think as you well understand, because you're a young guy and a bright guy, the challenges have evolved pretty aggressively over the last 3 or 4 years. I think the number one challenge is finding new members especially from the younger generations, and getting them interested in getting them to understand the value of participating as a member or a sponsor of an association. Maintaining existing membership is difficult as well, because you've got to continually prove the value of being a member or a sponsor. And I think that's getting more complicated in this day and age, because there's a lot of competition out there. So I think associations in a lot of ways have never had a better time than right now to succeed. The caveat being, if they use all the technology, the tools, and understand how to manage their data and their keep their member data and sponsor data up to date and clean, and then have good engagement strategies. All the tools are out there. It levels the playing field for an association that really takes the time to understand all the options.
And why do you think, just going back to the younger generation, why do you feel that associations might be struggling at the moment to demonstrate value, to communicate value? Where do you think that stems from?
I think I'm a baby boomer, and I think as the baby boomers start retiring or continue retiring and are replaced by Gen Xers and the other groups that follow, I think we have to do a better job of proving the value, because they're curious. They have more choices. They're less likely to just follow what others do. And I think, that's that way in consumer goods. It's good. It's that way in B2B services. I think it's a generational curiosity, and sort of as a group, they're more demanding, and I think that's all very fair.
And you mentioned data just now. How, if associations aren't necessarily using their data to make informed decisions, how are they making those decisions? Is it primarily based on sort of experience and gut feel?
Well, I think it's a little bit all over the map, Marco. Every association is different in the way they are structured, the way they manage their data. I think one of the challenges they have is not necessarily understanding the quality of their member and sponsor data, what the gaps are, how to fix those gaps, and then how to sort of weaponize their data to help them improve engagement, improve the member experience, improve the sponsor experience. And so, look, for a lot of associations, just maintaining a list is difficult, because, as you know, associations tend to have smaller staffs. They tend to have less access to expertise unless they find it outside their walls when it comes to managing data. So it's a hard thing for them to do. Once they have their data in front of them, understanding the data trends, and how to read those trends and turn them into actionable items is another challenge. And again, I don't want to undersell associations. They're devoted, bright, talented people. But because they're generally small staff sizes, I think to this day, I'd say close to 60% feel they're understaffed or under-resourced, because they're, for the majority, nonprofit groups. They're a little bit at a disadvantage when it comes to the blocking and tackling of managing the quality of their member and sponsor lists, and then organizing that data in a way that they can use it to improve what they're doing. And I think the other thing is there's qualitative data and there's quantitative data. The membership list is obviously more quantitative, but I think associations sometimes don't have the resource and the expertise to collect good qualitative data, get opinions, get feedback from the membership, feedback from the sponsorships, ask the really hard questions so they can understand where the association stands with the membership and with the sponsorship relative to the value they're getting from their experiences. And doing that every year, as I think you should.
So resource constraints is definitely one that I've heard across the board. That's absolutely prevalent. And in terms of the qualitative data, again on resource constraints, I mean it's quite challenging to sift through sometimes open-ended questions when there might be thousands or tens of thousands of members. So that's absolutely a big issue.
Well, and I think there, as I said at the onset, there are really easy to tap into tools and vendors in the community of associations who can help with that. There's some terrific vendors out there that have easy to use, technology focused tools that can help gather qualitative and quantitative data and do it on a regular basis. They can do it on issue specific items. They can do it on, just about anything. So I think it's really helping associations or associations, I think, need help understanding all those tools that are out there because there are a lot of vendors that can help.
And is that something that you were helping associations with in terms of sort of picking the right tool whilst you were at Naylor? Was that
Sure
part of your remit? And on that point, what were the main hesitations of associations when going ahead with a technology suite?
Well, I think, because of the staff limitations they often have, the process of evaluating options is sometimes difficult and kind of lengthy. And so, I think the vendors like Naylor and others who can get in there and be succinct and very straightforward and to the point about here's what we can do to help you and how it works. That's got to be the focus. I think it's very important for vendors to be finding ways to simplify the process.
And and that's quite ironic because technology would alleviate some of those resource pressures at the outset.
Yeah.
It's just getting over that initial resource hurdle in order to find the right vendors, which will then unlock efficiencies downstream, right?
Absolutely. And as you know, Marco, that's a challenge for for-profit companies as much as nonprofit groups, is knowing that technology is going to help streamline process, improve the quality of data, et cetera, but getting to the right solution can be a little arduous and doesn't need to be, but it can be. And, that slows us all down sometimes.
And just on data then, do you think that associations have a really deep understanding of their members' behaviors, particularly when members first join, what they do, how they engage, what they find most valuable? I guess it depends on the association, of course, but
Well, it does.
What does your gut say?
And it depends on how much resource the association has to allocate to that, and whether or not they can bring in the kind of people, whether it's employees or contractors, to help them attack that. Some associations are terrific at it. I think our friends at ASAE do a marvelous job of staying on top of the trends and the tools that are available and trying them out and being a great example for other associations who can learn from the experiences ASAE has. So, I think Reggie Henry and all the folks at ASAE do a great job of staying connected to what other associations need, staying connected obviously to what they need, and then sharing that intelligence.
And Reggie's been a very strong voice in the association world for decades about the importance of technology in associations, right?
Yeah, he sure has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just on maybe some strategies that you found to be particularly impactful, what kind of strategy do you find most effective in order to drive member and sponsor engagement?
Well, I think the first point is having a strategy that includes all the different elements that a particular association utilizes to drive engagement. That's delivering good quality content, both through print and digital means. It's paying attention to the details of how accessible that content is and making sure that they're maximizing the monetization opportunity by having good qualitative and quantitative information about their members, what the buying power of their members is, how the members interact, and what things are happening at the membership level that advertisers, sponsors, and exhibitors can help them with. So I think it's really having a strategy for deploying all their engagement activities. That includes events. That includes career centers. That includes communities that they may have, online communities that they may be building. So it's really having a holistic strategy that's, really just, coming from a strategic foundation. And it all has to sort of start with having a good understanding of the quality of, and consistency of their member and sponsor data. If the collection of their member and sponsor data is spotty, that means their engagement activities will not reach the right people. It won't be opened or it won't be received. And if that happens, the advertisers, sponsors, and exhibitors will start to see that, and it will devalue the experience they have. So I think part of the strategy has to be a regular, organized, and thorough process of making sure that member and sponsor data is up to date, that you have the discipline to collect other qualitative and quantitative information to better inform the association about what the members and sponsors are looking for and needing, and how they feel about their experiences with the association. So it's really holistic strategies, I think, that are really vital. And
Yeah,
it's not the easiest thing to do if you're understaffed.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're a real data champion in the sense that pretty much every challenge or sort of goal that association has, the starting point at the core of it is data collection, analysis, and then sort of creating data-driven strategies off the back of that. And then perhaps as a sort of a final point, iterating on the initiatives based on the analysis of the data once that initiative has run its course. So
Yeah.
It's really kind of at the core of it. Yeah,
That's right.
And
And,
then,
think of it this way, Marco. I think associations membership and sponsorship lists are their most vital asset. And I think they realize that, and they protect it, and they respect it. But I think what they need to do is use the available resources that are out there today to help them manage that most valuable asset. And that means everything from the quality of the fields they're capturing on member and sponsor data and information and contact info and all that, and then developing a way to capture feedback and other pertinent information about how the both groups are participating, how they feel about their participation, and then use that information to build value.
And maybe just on that point of data, in terms of the sort of data that associations could be collecting or should be collecting, maybe we can just start sort of listing off. I've got some ideas. Maybe you can start us off with. So you mentioned qualitative data in terms of feedback, either from the events or from online aspects of the offering. Maybe we can just run through a few more.
Well, look, there's the obvious ones, which is the knowing everything you can about the member and the sponsor, the company, the role they play, where they're located. The better depth you have to the record on each member or sponsor, the more analysis you can do, the more tracking you can do, the more specialized you can be in targeting messages and content to individuals. The more you know about them, the better job you can do in informing them about what's happening in the industry and what's happening at the association. So I think it really starts with those fundamentals.
And that's it. So segmentation is really important, whether it be for sort of individual.
It's vital.
Yeah, and that's because then off the back of that, you can tailor effective communication strategies to really hone in on a particular demographic or a particular industry, and that's sort of a good starting point.
And if you think about the way successful event producers, including many associations, have operated for many years, the concept of audience development really has become a bit of a science. And one of the foundations of that science, if you will, is segmentation. Because if you want to draw a maximum number of attendees to your show, you're going to be pushing them information about the event that pertains to them personally and to their company, or to what their company category is. If you don't want to send the same messaging and the same marketing materials to everybody, because it's not going to resonate with everybody. So you have to segment it, and you can't segment the message unless your data is segmented. And I would say the same with sponsorship, which includes the sponsors, advertisers, and exhibitors that an association may have. I think one of the biggest weaknesses that many associations have, some know it, some don't, is using the same sort of diligence to collect and update their sponsor data, segmenting their sponsor data, understanding their sponsors more clearly so they can be more effective in reaching them.
So understanding your sponsors, you believe, is really important, as well as understanding your members, right? And that's a key.
If you think about the very recent, and what I mean by recent, I mean 2022, 23, early 24, there are a number of association market research projects out there that are well respected. The Naylor Benchmarking Survey is one of them. Marketing General has some data out as well. They all point to the same sort of high-level needs that associations have. Generating revenue is always in the top 2 or 3. And associations generate revenue through membership and through selling sponsorships at their events or around their content, selling advertising, selling exhibit space, etc., selling research. So if you're going to generate revenue, you've got to have a great handle, I should say, on your sponsor data. We, with Naylor, I'm working on a particular project with one of our association partners. They have outsourced the selling of their sponsorship and advertising, but through nobody's fault, they haven't done a particularly good job of monitoring the sponsor data, who's spending money, who's not, who's dropped off, who's not renewing, all those kind of things, and they actually are probably only penetrating the market by about 20%. They're missing about 80% of the potential. So, it just gets to the simple fundamental of treat the sponsor data with the same kid gloves that you intend to, use on your membership.
And actually, understanding where money is being spent is really a critical component of understanding engagement, because so we can track engagement from the perspective of, whether they're exhibiting, whether they're sponsoring, whether they're advertising, and then off the back of that, segment that as well to see if there are any patterns across the sponsors in terms of industry, or if it's members again, potentially around demographics. Yeah. So you might find that overall revenue is growing, but actually there's a subcategory in there which is sharply in decline, where it was originally one of the core part of your offering, and then that could be a focal point to sort of understand why Absolutely. Is it that this particular offering or this part of my offering has fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, and look, it's a very important point for both really membership and sponsorship. Our industry, all the industries are evolving in one way, shape, or another. That means the channels of distribution are evolving. That means the services that industry provides are evolving. So if you don't have a good handle on how that's occurring at the membership level and at the sponsorship level, it's going to be really hard to serve them effectively. And, I think the best thing you can do is be on top of those things as an association, really on top of those things, so you can really serve the market in the best possible way.
That's it. And it's perhaps not just about the internal data, but also that external data in the form of sort of benchmarking reports that you mentioned as well. So what were some of the sort of the key reports that you would suggest to the audience to look at?
Well, there's a lot of really good information out there about the association market. So whether it's coming from ASAE or companies like Naylor, Marketing General, and Higher Logic, and some of the other great vendors out there, that there's a lot of good data out there for associations to tap into. There are also almost always, information gatherers, consulting firms, and others who do reports for vertical markets. And so whether it's the association market or the vertical market that an association is serving, there's also other ways to collect information about the trends in a vertical market. And in many cases, the really big associations who are, like National Retail Federation, they're the leading source of information for their market, as one example. Many others, the National Association of Manufacturers, ASAE, those are the groups that their industries look to for information. Then for them, it's a little easier because they can then use that information, share it with their membership and sponsor and their whole industry, but they can also use it to serve their market better.
Yeah. And then that also demonstrates to the community that they are ahead of the curve as well.
Absolutely.
They've got their finger on the pulse. And so you mentioned trends. What sort of trends are you seeing at the moment, or certainly that have sort of stood out to you? I mean, you've been in the association world for 20 years, 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably longer than that if you must know, but I'm sure I don't look that old. But I think, as I said earlier, the trends that are hitting the market are the same trends that hit for-profit businesses. You got to learn how to use the tools that are out there to make you more efficient and more effective at what you're trying to do. And having a clear strategy is one thing. Having realistic goals tied to that strategy is another thing. And learning how to use the available technology and tools that are out there, which is amazing what we can do now and what we can access now, and on top of everything that's happened in the last 5 years, now we have artificial intelligence that we can really put to work in great ways to help us. It's just having an open mind on learning what the tools are and how you can employ them.
So that would be your message, sort of, to the community or to the associations, right? Just keep an open mind, not necessarily needing to follow anything down a rabbit hole. Just keep
learn. Don't follow rabbit holes. Don't chase shiny objects, but move with urgency to solve your individual problems.
Yeah, and
the shiny objects can be really helpful, or they can distract you from focusing on the things you really need to be focused on. So everyone's talking about artificial intelligence now, as they were talking about social media 10 or 15 years ago, when everyone talked about it, but nobody really did a whole lot about it. I think today it's very important to find sources of whether it's artificial intelligence or other great software tools that are out there that can help an association tackle specific issues. I think what's exciting about what you're doing at Senis is you've actually come out with a platform that helps improve the quality of data and then vastly improve the quality and timeliness of analyzing that data. That's really a very specific use of artificial intelligence and related technology that can make a difference for an association. I think that's what you have to focus on, is solving specific problems that support your strategy.
And do you think that enough association leaders are really talking about AI and giving AI the sort of its dues?
I think in every company and every association, there's a lot of discussion about artificial intelligence, as there should be. Anybody who subscribes to ChatGPT and it's amazing, and it's only going to get more amazing as time goes by. What's missing is connecting the dots, and I think the vendor community that serve associations and other industries are slowly bringing tools to market that utilize artificial intelligence. You just have to be careful and not assume that AI is a shiny object that will solve all your problems. Like anything else, you have to deploy it intelligently. So I think, again, as I said earlier, is finding ways to address specific challenges you have by way of artificial intelligence and other tools is a way you should focus your review of those opportunities. Yeah, and I would say that for nonprofit or profit or for-profit groups.
Yeah, and you said something very interesting there, that when AI first came out and ChatGPT hit the mainstream, a lot of people thought, well, this is the panacea and we can just throw everything at the AI and all of our problems are solved. But the reality is that, as you mentioned, there is that prelude to the AI processing, which is ensuring that the data is to standard, it's of high quality, and it's also relevant for your specific goals, and that you're collecting the right data for your objectives as well. And then just on that point, if you had to hazard a guess, what sort of percentage of associations do you think have data that's currently good enough to put into an AI solution and draw insights from it?
What incentive do they have?
No, sorry, what percentage? What percentage?
I think it's impossible to measure. I don't think it's a big number yet. I think the number of options that are really utilizing AI are fairly limited. There's a few out there that are starting to bubble up, but I think there's I couldn't tell you how many are being utilized by how many associations. I don't think I would say it's less than 10% for sure.
Okay.
Probably less than that.
Okay. So in conclusion, sort of final thoughts then, we'd say that getting on top of your data and appreciating that data today is more valuable than it's ever been. I mean, that's one of the things that we're really, really firm believers on. And the ability to process that data thanks to AI is something that we've never seen before. And we believe that there's an enormous opportunity for associations.
Oh, yeah.
And what would you say to associations that are sort of on the fence at the moment of either taking a plunge or at the very least looking at solutions?
I would start looking at the options that are out there right now. And there are certainly 3 or 4 AI options that I know of that are available, including obviously Senis. And I think, ring them up and talk to them about what their offering does. And again, I'll come back to what I said earlier about make sure it's focused on solving a particular problem. There are some tools out there that will give you options on how to use it, and that might be well suited for some groups. But I think the majority of associations need some help figuring out how to deploy AI, and I think that's true with many companies. So look for things that help you address specific needs.
And I think that's a really important point. So the starting point should really always be understanding what problem you're solving for. And we found that, ironically, there's a sort of an iterative cycle where you start off with a problem hypothesis in terms of where you believe your pain points are within the association, where the challenges are. AI can then help help you understand a little bit more based on your data, but it also then highlights areas of weaknesses within the data, which in turn gets us back to the start. And this is the beauty of it. So it's not a one-shot deal. This is a continuous, progressive, multi-month, multi-year initiative, right?
I think it's got to be an ongoing initiative.
Yeah.
And, it's got to be part of how a company or an association operates. And look at all the things we didn't do 5 years ago that we're starting to do now. And I think it's because the technology has evolved and is easier to acquire and use. I think artificial intelligence, according to almost everyone you talk to and you hear in the media who really know, artificial intelligence is going to change the way we do almost everything over time. But, you don't have to wait for that. I think it's finding applications that help you solve a problem and then using it to give you a competitive advantage every day, every week, every month. I think the importance of the quality and depth of your data, whether you're an association or a for-profit business, is only going to get more important every week as we go forward. The winners out there, whether they are associations or companies, are going to be the ones that find ways to adopt tools like artificial intelligence and maximize their use to make them more competitive. I think associations have to think more competitively. I think companies do as well. And these are competitive advantages if you capture them and use them right.
Absolutely. And that's irrespective of what the objectives are. For example, I mean, we've spoken to a lot of associations that don't have a growth problem, don't have retention problems, but they are very interested in engagement. Similarly, there's another association that we're speaking to and working with, and their growth is staggering, and it's at sort of 15% average every quarter. So that's kind of where their growth rate is. But in the first year, we found that they only have 60% retention rates in first years. So their problem is exclusively focused on retention and, by extension, understanding behavior and engagement. But that's the point. So understanding where your initial problems are, what your hypothesis is, and then iterating on that hypothesis, iterating on the data quality and on the strategies as well.
And the other thing I'll say is this. I think I mentioned earlier the concept of leveling the playing field. Well, I think artificial intelligence is one of those things that will help level the playing field. So even I think small understaffed groups can use tools that really can maybe have a bigger impact on their operations and on the quality of the data they're gathering and maintaining and utilizing, that really helps, a state, regional, or provincial group operate as effectively when it comes to their own data as a large national group can. It's finding that tool to address that specific issue. You guys have it, and a few others do too.
And do you think these sort of solutions could transform the events space as well?
It's a natural. I mentioned the science of attendance marketing, attendee acquisition. The fundamentals are the same. Event groups, individual events that master the quality and depth of their attendee and sponsor and exhibitor data are the ones that win, because they're not only capturing the right depth of information, they're doing a great job gathering qualitative information. It's a little easier for them because they can focus on just their event or their family of events or their brand. But nonetheless, understanding the depth and quality of your data is still the first fundamental. And so I think the kind of tools that you guys are building are vital for even a for-profit event company or for associations to use to improve their events. Let's face it, coming out of COVID, I think exhibitors and sponsors have realized that they have to be more selective about the events they participate in and spend money on, and they're going to do so based on the quality of the attendees that they're seeing at these events. Conversely, attendees of events are going to be looking at the whole experience, including the quality of sponsors and exhibitors they'll be able to see at these events. So, as well as the quality of the programming and all that. So, it's a really simple fundamental for any event business, again, in an association or separate. And so these tools will work terrifically for them as well.
Fantastic.
Is terrifically a word?
It is.
Okay.
It's a great word.
I'd I like to make them up sometimes.
And just on COVID, do you feel like there was a market shift coming out of COVID, going into COVID? What was sort of the impact on associations, and sort of have associations recovered fully and back to sort of pre-COVID times now?
I think there were several shifts during COVID and immediately following, when everyone really thought the coast was clear, if you will, probably in 22. I think, generally speaking, I think associations have recovered. I think the smart ones learned a lot about the importance of the details around their events, around the data they're capturing about their members and sponsors, because they had to sort of start from scratch in many cases. Between their events vanishing for a year or two and the tens of millions of people that changed jobs, changed email addresses, changed industries, getting up to date data. I don't think all that's been cleaned up yet, but I think most of it has. But I think there's still a little hangover on the quality of data that comes from all the change that came out of COVID. So, I think people have recovered, but I'm hopeful that they've learned some valuable lessons about the quality of their member, attendee, sponsor, exhibitor data, and how to stay on top of it, and how to not take their events and their offerings for granted, and not make assumptions about how good those offerings are.
Yeah.
They got to measure it all the time.
Data-driven decisions.
Data-driven decisions.
Fantastic.
Did you just make that term up?
No.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Whatever.
No, but that's really it.
Yeah.
Using data to help make good decisions. And I think AI enables people to understand their data better and make better decisions about their data in real time. So what I've seen of your offering, it really provides ongoing, real access to trends in the data. That's what we need.
Okay, brilliant. I think we can wrap up here. Alex, thank you so much for coming on today. You've been
Marco, thank you. My pleasure.
I found all of the things that you said very insightful, and I hope that everyone listening today has also found it just as insightful. Before we go,
I did too.
Yeah, so just before we go, if you'd like to learn a bit more about us, then just visit our website, that's Senis.AI, and follow us on LinkedIn as well. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Marco.